Steve Pasquale, is he still the guy? I think so. He does not appear on. We're good.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining. We have GM Scott Fitterer, Assistant GM Dan Morgan, and Director of College Scouting Cole Spencer here. Scott, you can open us up.
All right. First of all, I just want to welcome everybody. This is obviously a very exciting time of the year for the organization, for our team. I think it's been a great process so far. Obviously, being here a year and a half, working with Coach Rule, Matt and I've really gotten to know each other over the past, year and a half, and very comfortable with each other, very aligned. And so I'm excited about this process. With the coaching staff, the scouting staff, we spent the last week together. And really, I think we're pretty much all on the same page. There are very few differences. So I feel like we're ready for this weekend. First of all, I just want to thank the scouts. They put in all the hard work during the season. They go to the schools, they're the boots on the ground for us. And I also want to thank their family. They're the ones that sacrifice when they're on the road. So I want to thank the families for that. The coaching staff, they do so much work. It's a new staff this year, and they did a great job helping us out. And then everyone in this organization, the video team with Todd Green and his staff, IT with JD, the kitchen, weight room, everyone's helped out to make this a successful draft. So we're excited about this. The draft is huge for us. This is the foundation of our team. This is how we build it, and this is how we shape our team moving forward. So we're really excited about this process. Last year, I thought it was a good draft. It was exciting. Every board is different, so we were able to move around, acquire picks, build depth for this team, and get some young guys that, like JC Horn, can be huge pieces for us moving forward. So I was excited about that. And then after the draft last year, Matt, Rule, Pat, myself, we got together and we decided, hey, what's the best way to do this? How can we improve this, going forward in 2022? And so what we did is we sat down, we talked about maybe building up our staff, building up our library, and also modernizing our scouting system. So we went out, we talked to Mr. Tepper, and we presented this idea to him, and he was quick to buy in and invest in this process. And so what we did is we went out, hired Dan Morgan as our assistant GM, Cole Spencer, our director of college scouting. We hired 2 national scouts, Jared Kirksey and Tyler Ramsey. Sam Diamond, brought on Terry Bradway, who's got a ton of experience in the NFL, and then built up our intern program. So with that, last year's process, we had 1 or 2 reports on every player. This year, we have anywhere from 3 to 6. So what that does, it really helps us feel confident about how we built this board. And building the board that's the most important thing we do. That drives every decision that we make during the draft, whether we trade, whether we pick, whether we move into next year and get picks. It's very important for us to have that board right and stay true to it on draft day. So that's what we did. And then, just overall, I thought the coaching staff they gave us the clear vision of what they wanted. That helps us, drive the value on the players and how to place them on the board. So we're excited about that. And, just really going into this draft, we have a lot of flexibility. We have a lot of different ways we can go. We don't have a day 2 and day 3 pick. A lot of that will be driven by what happens in front of us. But one thing you can expect is we're going to be aggressive, looking around, seeing what we can do. So with that, I want to introduce Cole Spencer, who's our director of college scouting. He can take you through the board and how it's built this year.
Just to piggyback off of what Scott was saying, just really appreciative for all the work that our scouts have been doing this year. It's a huge draft class with the COVID year. The guys getting the extra year of eligibility, it almost made like a double draft class for us. So just really proud with the way our guys worked, all the hard work they put in. So we evaluated close to 800 guys from this year's draft class. Right now, our draftable board is sitting at 156 prospects. Just with the structure that Scott has set up and, just going through the meeting process and, how hard our guys have worked, I feel really good about our process, just moving forward. I feel prepared for this weekend and, just ready to go.
All right, we can start with questions. Say your first and last name, your immediate outlet. We'll start with David Newton, followed by Steve Reed.
Hey, Scott, good to see you. I wanted to ask, how many teams have you heard from wanting to trade up with you in this draft, and what are the chances are that you trade down?
Yeah, there's always a lot of communication. I mean, we may talk to 15 or 20 teams, prior to the draft. That doesn't mean everybody's going to move up. What we've done is I think there's probably a handful of teams, maybe 3 to 4 that are really serious about it. We're just keeping all of our options open, but it's definitely something that we're going to look into. But if there's a good player there at 6, we're going to just stay there and pick the player. We have several players on our board that get to help us get to 6. And so if there's a good player, we'll stay there and pick. But, without having a second or third round pick, we're going to keep all options open.
How many players would you be happy with at that 6 among the players in the top 10 right now?
So we always talk about there's a ledge, in the first round. This year it's right around 20. And that ledge within the ledge really stops right around 6. And so we feel like there's going to be a quality player there. But at that point, we'll make the decision. If there'll be a couple guys on the board that we'll just pick. We know we want to take them. We know they can help us. If they're gone, then we have opportunities.
Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, just yeah, obviously there's the omnipresent need, I guess, for a quarterback. And do you feel any of the guys in this draft are worthy of being selected with that number 6 pick?
Yeah, I do think there's a talent level on a couple of them this year that can help us. Whether it's at 6, whether it's moving around. If we had to pick 1 to 6, I would feel comfortable with one of them, or actually a couple of them at 6.
We go Joe Person, followed by Scott Fowler.
Hey, Scott, Dan, Cole, thanks for doing this. Good to see you. Scott, offensive tackle, how many of those guys do you have with top 6 grades?
I don't want to get too far into that, Joe, and this is a really good question. But I think if we start, divulging that publicly, like we kind of lose leverage out there, and we don't want other teams to know that. But we do have several that we like at that number 6 spot.
And I think you had 3 of those guys in for pre-draft visits. Just kind of wondered what your takeaway was with visiting with Cross, Neal, and Icky.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time with our coaching staff. We got to meet them as well. Obviously, as the scouts, we've met them either at the school, at the pro days, at all-star games. This is really a chance for our coaches really to get to know them more than just outside that 20-minute window of the combine. So we're able to get them on the board, learn a lot about them. And I think we feel pretty good about these guys as they left our building.
I have a couple. Hey guys, thanks for doing this. One's short, one's a little more philosophical. This one's for Cole, I guess. Can you say out of those 156 on your board, Cole, how many of those are quarterbacks?
I don't want to give away too much information. There's a few guys that we feel really good about that has skill sets that I think can help us out. But I don't want to get into specifics on how many guys we have draftable at a specific position. But needless to say, there's guys we like.
Okay. And this is for Scott. Just from a philosophical sense right now, Scott, where do you think the quarterback position is as you go into this draft? And how, quarterback needy do you envision this franchise at the moment?
I think we've talked about since the season, we want to stabilize the quarterback position. We need consistent play out of that. And, I sat down with Sam yesterday and just we talked about everything. Like we need to help him out as well. We need to help him out with the offensive line. I think we've done a good job, keeping DJ here and, with McCaffrey and surrounding him with the talent where he doesn't feel like he has to make every play. But we do have to protect him. But in our conversation, I said, hey, listen, we are going to add to this group, through this weekend. There's a pretty good chance we could add to this group. And it's open competition. It's his spot right now. But whoever can take this spot and run with it, we're going to do that. And so he was good with that. We're on the same page. And we know we need to stabilize that position. But we're looking forward to adding to it.
Thank you.
All right. We go Jonathan Alexander, followed by Darren.
Hey, Scott, Cole, Dan, thanks for doing this. This question is for Scott. Do you all have a preference on whether you all would want to trade for a veteran quarterback or draft one? I know your options are open, but do you have a preference at this point? What determines?
I think
and
we're
how does
gonna
that
get,
affect?
yeah, we're gonna get through the draft this weekend and see what happens. We do have options outside of the draft. We like guys in the draft, so we'll just see how it plays out. And we'll make the best decision for this team over the next, couple weeks.
And Cole, how does the fact that this draft had so many more prospects, how did that make perhaps things more difficult in evaluating?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to the workload at each school. So where in the past you may be writing up, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys at each school. I mean, we had some schools that had 20 plus prospects, and then the next day you're going to another school with 20 more prospects. So really it was just for our scouts, just staying organized, staying on top of their reports was the biggest thing, but the workload really did increase for those guys. So I thought they did a great job handling it.
Okay, and this is for Scott and Cole, really. Could each of you guys speak to the question? I mean, there's a big gulf between 6 and 137, I think, when you guys pick next. Did that change the way you scout and kind of the guys you consider, knowing there is going to be that wide space in between?
No, you know what? You grade the player individually. You don't grade him based on need. You grade him based on your team, their talent level. So you have to be disciplined with that, not to push players. Because when you do that, that's when you get in trouble. So whether we're picking 2 or 137, or we don't know what we're going to acquire in between either. So we have to be prepared at every level, at every pick with who we want.
And I think this is a deep draft class as well. So I think regardless, we're going to find a good player, whether that's at 6 or whether that's later on in the draft. I think we can find depth. I think we can find players that'll help us.
And along those lines, at that point, I think you go 3 picks in a 12-pick span. How difficult is that when you're on the clock that often, that close together?
We brought in a system that we had in Seattle, called the pick 6 system. And we just keep adding to that, so that the next 6 players that we take at any pick are right on the board in the order we take them. What that does, it takes out a lot of the confusion. And a lot of that is done as we're sitting up front. It's Matt, myself, Mr. Tepper, it'll be Dan and Cole and Pat Stewart. We'll be up there constantly tinkering on that pick 6 board. And that way, if they are back-to-back picks, we know exactly who we're taking as it goes. And it also helps us identify how many players do we have. If we have all 6 players there, we can also trade back. We can trade back 3, 4, 5 spots and be assured you can get one of those picks or one of those players.
We go Will Pelagic, followed by Phil Orban.
Hey, Scott, I got a pair. I'll go one at a time. In terms of your decision to trade back, would you prioritize a starter level player or more draft capital volume?
You know what? This isn't about just acquiring draft capital. It's not about the number of picks. That's not how you win. It's about getting the right players and identifying the right players. And we're not going to move out of a player just to acquire picks. If we can look at the board and read it right, if we trust how we said it, and there's multiple players there and we think they're close in value, we'll do that. But we're not going to do it just to acquire picks.
And this is kind of close to Darren's question, but with that number 6 pick, with how high it is, I know you don't want to force a need, but with that, where that pick is it more incumbent on you to make a hit on something that can contribute to your team right away?
You know what? You don't want to get stuck with that mindset. You just have to say, hey, listen, this is the role this guy can do. This is what he's going to come in and do for us, and be comfortable with that and trust that you evaluating him the right way. If we do that, we'll be totally good with that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Scott, we talked about this last year, and you've mentioned a couple times figuring out what the teams in front of you are going to do. You had that video where you pretty much nailed the first 7 picks a year ago, and this feels like it's a more unpredictable top end of the draft maybe than last year, at least from the outside. And I'm wondering what your comfort level is compared to last year as far as what you think the other teams are going to do.
Yeah, I think this is totally different this year. Even though we're picking at 6, it's hard to, say this person will be here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like we did last year. Matt and I were laughing today. Hey, if we did that again, you'd have to do it 3 or 4 times to get it right, because this really, I mean, it's the first pick. Usually, you know who the first pick is going to be, or have a very good idea. It's totally up in the air. We don't know, how many tackles are going to go, how many quarterbacks will go, how many receivers, corners. It doesn't matter. Like, it's totally up in the air. But the one thing we'll do is we'll be prepared, with our 1 through 10, 1 through 15 list, exactly how we take them off the board. And then if someone's not there, it doesn't fall our way, we'll look to see what our options are.
Appreciate it.
We go Ellis Williams, followed by Nick Carboni.
Hey guys, how y'all doing? Thanks for doing this, of course. Scott, I'm wondering, when you guys what is the process of weighing the veteran quarterback market compared to the rookie quarterbacks that are available?
Well, obviously, it's great to go with a young guy. I mean, that you want to draft one, develop them, and have them be your own. There's a cost effectiveness that is involved with that. And you also, why are some quarterbacks available that are out on the market? You have to ask yourself that. So, obviously, every time you draft a quarterback, ideally you want them through the draft. But however we get them, whatever it takes to get them in the door here, once we get them, we'll work with them and develop them. And that's just kind of the process we'll go about.
And if I can follow up, you mentioned that the draft is how you guys plan and envision building this team. With that being said, is there going to be both a priority to recoup day 2 capital in going into this weekend? And then going forward, is there a priority to protect future draft capital so you guys aren't in this situation again where you're not picking for 2 complete rounds?
Yeah, so for the first one, we're not gonna be so focused on recouping those picks because we look at CJ Henderson as, our 3rd round pick this year. So we don't want to make the mistake of just moving around, like I was talking about earlier. So if there's a good player there, we'll pick him. And then as far as future draft capital, then absolutely, like, you want to protect those picks. And a lot of the conversations I've had with other teams, over the last week is, hey, do you want to give up something next year, in 2 or 3 to move up this year? And my answer has been no. We want to protect those picks. They're very valuable to us, and we're not going to just throw them out there. So, even though you can recoup over time, that's not the plan. We're going to be disciplined with our approach.
Great answer. Thanks, Scott.
Scott, of the offensive tackles that you guys have graded the highest and would consider with the 6th pick, do you view all of them as starting left tackles day 1 in the NFL? And how important would that be when you are considering taking them at 6 overall?
Yeah, when you take them at 6, that's obviously the talk that's out there is you want someone that's plug and play, but you don't want to put a benchmark on it necessarily. You want them to come in. Once they're ready, we're going to put them in there, whether they're ready day 1, whether they're ready, game 6. We'll put them in there when they're ready. We have Brady Christensen out there. We have players that can play. So we're not going to force it. Once they're out there, we're going to give them the tools and to be successful.
We'll go Mike Salate, followed by David Newton.
Thanks very much. Hey, Scott, good to see you again. I wanted to ask you about the visits that you guys had with some of the prospects as they came in, and did those visits maybe help solidify some guys and maybe rise in your board and maybe help and not force, but cause others to maybe fall?
I think you always learn about guys when they come in and you get them on your turf and you have time to spend with them. For the most part, yeah, it can affect it. I think all the guys we brought in were pretty solid this year. Talking to the coaches afterward, we liked them. Some guys, there are some questions when they leave, but we go back, we take the next couple of weeks to learn more about them. We'll contact their coaches and fill in any holes that we may have. But the group we have was a pretty solid group.
And then I have one for Dan, if you'll allow. Dan, you haven't been.
Thanks for including me.
Sitting here for a while.
Sitting here waiting.
I felt like you might feel left out. You're of the guys
Thanks,
at the podium there, you're the most recent guy that's played, and obviously you've worked with Scott in the past. So what is your perspective on the guys that are coming into the draft, and because you kind of view them with that former player eye, I would think, to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think there's some talented players in this draft. I think there's a lot of depth throughout. I think some positions are a little heavier than others. I would say, like O-line, obviously, I think that's pretty strong position, which is, that's a need of ours. Quarterback, I think there's some quarterbacks there that we like. So we feel good about a lot of different positions and the depth that is in this draft to help us out.
But in terms of how you yourself are looking at these guys as you're helping build these reports for the guys on
Right.
the board, I mean, do you kind of have a different look? Because you can, I think with a better perspective, notice a guy's
Yeah.
footwork or athleticism, or, how would this guy get away from me, or how would he play alongside me as a former player?
Right. I mean, I think, just in terms of being a former player, I think a lot of these guys have played too. So, they have a perspective as well. But, yeah, no, I definitely, think, in terms of me looking at it, I can maybe see some things that some other guys can't, in terms of the competitor, what scheme they're in. Are they doing the right thing in that scheme if they're playing a certain coverage or, a certain protection or little things like that. I definitely feel like I have a good eye for that, for sure. So I think it definitely helps out.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So Dan, so I don't leave you out here. You want to tell us who your favorite player is at number 6?
Nope, not getting me there. No, there's a lot of guys.
And Scott, you kept talking about you don't want to trade out if you got the right player there. How far do you think you could be willing to trade back? I mean, I know you said you've got a line at the around 19 or 20, but there's some teams that might be looking to move up ahead of you guys to get some players too. So how far do you really feel comfortable moving back?
Yeah, I think the comfort level would be really in the teens. However, this is a large group. This is a unique group that between that 25 and 50 range, there are a lot of good players, more like foundation type players. So you don't want to, you want to be disciplined, not trading out those levels. But I think the teens, if I had to put a number on it, that would probably be the most comfortable spot. But you have to kind of just weigh what's on the table at the time.
I'm not sure if you can comment on this, but your name and the team's name and Baker Mayfield keeps coming up in there. Can you tell us if there's any interest there at all, or?
No, yeah, just because he's on another team right now, and obviously league rules prohibit us from talking about other players.
I understand that. I was just curious. But is there conversations though going on with teams with veteran quarterbacks that you're still having?
Yeah, we'll evaluate the whole landscape and see what's out there, and there's several different players out there, and we'll talk directly to different teams. So we're not just sitting here looking solely at the draft. We're looking at every option.
Thanks.
We have time for a few more, so we start with Joe Person, followed by Scholar, and then Jonathan Alexander.
Hey, Scott, we haven't talked to you or Matt in recent weeks. What's the team's stance and reaction on Damian Wilson?
It's a pending legal matter, so honestly, we can't talk about it. I did speak with him after the incident, but I can't really talk any further until it plays out.
And then you and Dan and Cole can chime in here if they'd like. You talked about being in a good space with Matt and being aligned. If you get to a point in the draft where y'all are sort of not aligned, who breaks that tie?
I mean, from my perspective, we've had a real collaborative view on everything. And, I feel like we're all aligned in our vision and kind of the direction that we're going. So I feel good in that sense that, if we do get in that type of situation that, hey, we're all going to talk it through, and we're all going to make the best decision for the Carolina Panthers.
Honestly, we're going to put them in the back of the room, let them fight it out.
Yeah.
Hey, one quick last one. We know and heard and read about your owner driving a lot of the Deshaun pursuit. How involved will Tepper be if, in fact, you guys are on a quarterback?
He's very involved with what we do. We include him in all of our conversations, but he's very respectful of the people that work here. He respects Dan and Cole and Coach and Pat, and he'll listen to everybody. He'll listen to our coaches. And, I don't see him being the type to say, hey, listen, we're going to do this. This is my decision. That's not him at all. He's very supportive of us, and he understands the process, and we're going to spend the next couple of days together and talk it all out. And, but I can't ever see that being the situation.
Hey, Scott, kind of going back to trading back, you guys brought in 11 guys in the last year's draft class. So when you get to number 6, had you not brought in a draft class of that size last year, would you feel like your view may change on that and try and get some of those picks back, where now you still have some of those guys, coming back this year? And also, what about that second group? I know you talked about that ledge being around 18 or 20. How deep does that second batch of talent go? Do you think some of that could slip into the 4th round?
Yeah, first of all, the point you bring up is a really good point. I mean, the whole idea is we have some young guys we drafted last year. We're going to keep developing those guys, and the pure volume does help with our depth. And obviously every year we want to add many more players, and we're going to try to do that this year. Whether we have to move around and do that and acquire picks, we'll do that. What was the second part of that question? Sorry, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
The second batch of talent from beyond the first 20 guys, can some of that possibly leak into the 4th round? Is that batch of talent deeper this year than it was last year?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily deeper. I think there's more names. We evaluated more players. The way our board is set up, it's pretty balanced throughout. But I think, like I said earlier, I think that the meat of this draft is probably that 25 to 50 range, right in there. That's a really good group. Then after that, it's like, what fits your team best? Who can you sit and develop? And we've identified as many of those players in that 4th, 5th round.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott and Dan too. 2 quick questions. Have you all yet picked up the 5th-year option on Brian Burns' contract?
Not officially. That is the plan. And, we love Brian. We want him to be here long-term. So we will pick up the 5th-year option, and then we have the hopes of extending him beyond that.
And Dan, outside of the 1st round with the 4th through 7th round picks, where do you all's needs? Where do you all feel like you all perhaps want to get? Which needs do you want to address?
I think it really depends on, 1st round, what we do there. If we address one position, then, maybe we prioritize a different position in the later rounds. So it's really hard to predict who's going to be there too. We're really just going to try to find the best players, and hopefully there's a good one down there when we're picking, and, we can nab one of them.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we finished with this last 2. Chris Jenkins, followed by Nick.
Hey, it's Chris Jenkins with Charlotte Vibe. Scott, you had spoke earlier about modernizing the scouting system. And it sounded like that was mostly about adding more bodies or resources. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more on that process, or how much more you could speak on that, the scouting changes you got did.
There's a system that's in place here that had been kind of built and then added onto over time. And then part of that conversation with Mr. Tepper and investing in new technology, and as far as our staff as well, was coming up with a new scouting system. And that was that's being built right now, and that'll take effect this spring going into next season. And so that'll be a big part of our scouting process. There's a lot of bells and whistles that we've put onto this, and just the ease of use that is going to help. So that was kind of the modernization part that I was talking about.
This is adding more technology, I guess, that you guys are using in-house with the additional resources to manage those things.
Yeah, more ability to filter information. There's so much information out there now in this analytics world that we live in, and all the information world, that it just helps us sift through this quicker. And so that's part of our new system.
Cole, I'll ask this one to you. If you guys are able to trade back and get some of those Friday picks, 2nd and 3rd rounds, with the guys that you're familiar with on your board in that range, what positions would really excite you about being able to go after in those rounds?
Again, without getting into specifics, I mean, there's some really good players later on in the draft. Don't want to give away, what we're trying to do, but rest assured, in 2nd, 3rd, 4th round later in the draft, I think there's some role players, some depth of guys that can really help us.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Cole, for taking time out. Appreciate it.